It's not every day that we start a review of a car from the back seat, but some days are just about this, the thrill of chilling. This is the new Kia Carnival. It's not a facelift, it's a new generation, and it brings with it completely new styling, more space on the inside, more comfort, and in typical Kia fashion, more features. But it's also gotten a lot more expensive. Let's find out if it's worth that money. Welcome to Evo India and welcome to our first drive review of the new Kia Carnival. But before we go ahead, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Evo India channel and leave a comment down below. Would you pick an MPV over an SUV? We'd love to know. So like I said, we start in the second row in these incredibly comfortable captain seats. You cannot spec the second row with a bench. You get only one variant which comes with captain seats in the center and a bench at the back which seats 3. Amenities in the second row, you've got these lovely armrests. You've got this winged headrest over here. Incredible amount of adjustability in the seat, so you can move it back, you can recline it. It also shifts from left to right, so you can make more space in the center for people to access the back. You have an ottoman here which can come out, so if I press this button here, the ottoman pulls out, and if I want to make more space, I have buttons over here to move the front seat out of the way. So you can really make a lot of room. They're calling this the Carnival Limousine, and I'll be honest, it feels like a limousine. The amount of space, the way you can stretch out, the way you can recline and just relax over here is phenomenal. In terms of other stuff you've got cooled and heated seats in the second row. You've got this big split sunroof right above your head, so you've got one portion over there, you've got a second one here, and this one actually opens if you want it to. I don't want it to, but it can. And you've got automatic climate control for the rear zone. So you've got 3-zone climate control, and this zone gets its own controls. But there's a problem. The controls are way over there on that pillar, out of reach for me. So you've got to be sitting in this seat if you want to reach the climate control buttons. This was a flaw on the older Carnival, and they've just carried it forward over here. You also get USB ports in the seats in front, Type-C ports, and you get a sunblind. Apart from that, cup holders in the front. You've got 12-volt socket, you've got storage over here, and you get a lot of accessories as well. You can spec a tray table on there. I'm sure it'll cost you a little bit extra, but you can do stuff like that. So this second row is really the place to be in terms of comfort, and it's a phenomenal experience over here. The third row of the Kia Carnival is very impressive. Probably one of the most comfortable third rows on any car on sale in India today. In terms of space, generous. The middle row is set to a comfortable position, not extremely spacious, but a middle position, and I've got plenty of room over here. Under thigh support is a little limited. The knees are in a slightly upwards position, but it's much better than most third rows in general. 3 people can fit in here. You've got 3 seat belts, but 2 will be more comfortable. This is not a very wide seat, so shoulder room might be a little limited. In terms of amenities, you've got USB Type-C ports, you've got cup holders, and you even have your own little sunshade in the back. Okay, now let's talk comfort on the go, and that means ride quality. What does the Kia Carnival ride like? Honestly, I'm very impressed. Out on the open highway, super stable, super planted. It just feels very like hunkered down to the road and very comfortable. Nothing much on the highway upsets it, so smaller bumps and undulations are dealt with very comfortably. You barely feel anything in the cabin, and there's none of that unnecessary float either. It just stays planted and you feel very secure, safe and comfortable in the back seat. You've also got a great view ahead. Because the seat slides left and right, I can just slide it to the right and look over the shoulder of the passenger in front of me, which makes it really nice because I have a clear view of the row ahead, not blocked by the seat in front. We then got into some narrower roads, and obviously the roads there deteriorated a little bit, but still the Carnival held its own. You've got to slow down a little bit for the bumps. If you take them too fast, you feel a little bit of shimmy and shake through the platform, but otherwise you slow down, you take it easily, you tell your chauffeur to drive you aram se, and you'll be very comfortable in the back. The Carnival suspension just rounds off all of the bumps very beautifully. When you go over a speed breaker, when you drop a wheel into a pothole. The way the suspension moves is very pliant. There's no sudden movements and there's no stiffness or firmness either. So it works in a manner that keeps you feeling very comfortable on the inside. I would use the word velvety to describe the ride because it just feels very ironed out and there's no sharpness that comes through the chassis up to your backside. So inside, like that was a rumbler strip, but it just rolls over it so easily, so blissfully. And in the cabin, I am very happy. As far as comfort goes, when you combine the seats that you get here, the space that you get here, along with the ride quality that the Carnival delivers, this is really very, very impressive. But it's not done yet. There is one more trick up its sleeve, and that is, well, I'm going to show you myself. You can recline this all the way back. You can put the ottoman out, and then you can lift up the seat to get into an almost horizontal position. Unreal. I'm horizontal on an Indian highway. I can't believe I have to get into the driver's seat and actually do some driving today. Only for you guys, my friends, only for you guys. Now that we're done with the back seat, let's talk about styling, because that is one of the big changes on the Carnival. The Carnival now looks more SUV-like. The design language draws heavily from the EV9, and you've got this more upright bonnet than before. Earlier it was sloping down, very MPV-like. Now it's more upright. You've got this flat front and it looks very SUV-like. You've got these vertically stacked headlamps and DRLs that do resemble the other Kias on sale in India today. Big tiger nose grille. You've got a chromish skid plate at the bottom, and it's actually a very imposing front design. On the side, you've got 18-inch wheels, and from the side is where you actually notice its size, the sheer length of this car. It's 5.1 meters long. The wheelbase itself is 3 meters, and it's longer than before. It's got a longer wheelbase than before, and that's what allows for more space on the inside. From the side, you'll also notice these sliding doors. They're such a identifying feature on the Kia Carnival, and they continue with this update. It makes ingress and egress very easy, and also helping with that is the running board that runs along the bottom over here. From the rear, again, more typical Kia design elements. You've got these vertically stacked tail lamps. You've got the light bar that runs the width of the car. Lower down, you've got the Limousine Plus badging identifying this variant, and like I said earlier, you only get one fully specced out variant of the Carnival in India. There's no different variants and no different seat configurations like the older Carnival. Overall, I like how it looks. I think it's a very handsome looking car. It looks a lot more desirable than the last Kia Carnival that looked a little bit like an MPV. This has a more macho, rugged, shoulders out SUV stance to it. So overall, looks good. And finally, let's get into the driver's seat and see what it's all about over here. To start with, large twin 12.3-inch screens, one for your instrument cluster, one for your infotainment screen. Below that, you've got this phygital panel with physical dials and these digital buttons. And this is very similar to what we've seen in the EV6 before. You've also got plenty of charging solutions. You've got two USB Type-C ports, you've got a 12-volt socket, wireless phone charger, and this massive center console with plenty of storage. You've got a tray, you've got cup holders, you've got another tray here, this huge under armrest storage area. In terms of features over here, cooled and heated front seats. You've got electrically adjustable front seats. This one is 12-way adjustable, that one is 8-way adjustable. You've also got a memory function for the driver's seat, so that's convenient if you've got your chauffeur using the car and you just want to get back into your driving position very easily. You've also got a big head-up display over there and a 360-degree camera, which you really need because this is a big car. Just like at the back, you've got a sunroof over here, and this one opens as well. And well, that's what you get for the Kia Carnival. Now, let's finally get to the driving and see what it's like. Alright then, finally we're talking about what it's like to drive. I've obviously left this for the end because it is the least important thing you need to know about the Kia Carnival. This is all about that seat over there. It's all about the thrill of chilling. But, big but, this is actually not a bad car to drive. Okay, first things first, engine. 2.2 litre turbo diesel, outputs 190 bhp and 441 Nm of torque. So, strong outputs, that's for sure, and it does feel pretty strong as well. There is a little lag if you're in first gear, if you're just setting off. Until you hit 2000 RPM, it's pretty much dead, but then it picks up and then it pulls strongly, and then you've got this lovely 6-speed automatic to shuffle you through the gears and keep you in the power band. So once you're up and moving and once you're at rolling speeds, there's really very little to complain about in terms of performance. In fact, it's quite fast if you look at the pure 0 to 100 time. Kia claims 10.7 seconds, which is impressive for such a massive, big car. But you don't want to drive it like a drag strip hero. You want to drive it a little leisurely fashion because, you know, the boss at the back wants to be kept comfortable. And when you do that, that torque, that 441 Nm, it's just so nice to have on your side because it just makes progress up the rev range so effortless. You can just roll onto the throttle and the revs pick up and it just picks up speed so effortlessly. Now, this is only available with a diesel. So if you're in Delhi and you're worried about diesels, then maybe the Carnival is not for you. But as a diesel, phenomenal. NVH, okay, there is some amount of noise that comes into the cabin, particularly when you're accelerating hard. When you've got it at low revs, say 2000 RPM, and you're just cruising, it's quiet. You can barely hear it in the cabin. But say the revs rise to 3500 RPM and you're accelerating, at that point of time, you can hear it a little bit in the cabin. It's this loud, growly, deep diesel rumble. To some, that might be comforting because that diesel noise generally is associated with a lot of, pull, and that is there in this car. But yeah, I mean, in a luxury car, you want it to be completely silent, and it's not completely silent, but that's okay. It's not intrusive either. And then there's the handling. Now, this is not a car you want to go chasing apexes in because it just isn't built for that. It's tall, it's long, it's heavy. The physics doesn't physics here. But I must say that if you do show it some bends, it's more competent than you think it would be. You turn it in, the front end complies, and then a second later the rear end complies, but it turns, and it turns well. One of the big changes they've done to this update is replace the hydraulic steering on the last car with electric power steering, and that makes a world of difference in terms of just the steering weight, steering lightness, and steering feel. It's not as feelsome as a hydraulic unit, but there's good weight, and in fact when you're driving it at low speeds, it's quite light. So the big advantage is when you're driving it around town, it's not as much of an effort to use. It's actually very easy. But even then, at speed, weighs up nicely. Out on the highway, feels very solid, feels very stable. So you can't really complain there. But yeah, handling chops, this is not a car that's designed to handle. But for everything else, for comfort, for space, for ride, for luxury, it's there. Something else that I wanted to talk about is the fit finish levels. It actually feels really well done. Everything feels superbly built. Everything feels very solid. There's no creaks and rattles. Sometimes when you're even driving more expensive cars like Mercs, you touch the dashboard and it makes a squeaking sound. But there's none of that here, which is very nice. A lot of soft touch materials. This is soft touch. This is soft touch. This is gloss black. There's ambient lighting, which, I mean, we're driving it in the day, so we don't know, but I'm sure it'll look very nice in the night. Everything feels very nice. The buttons feel well damped. Only thing, this AC panel is a little tricky to use on the go because there's no physical button, so you've got to look and then aim your left hand correctly and then press the buttons. But apart from that, it's not too hard to use, and overall it feels like a very solidly built car. Kia's obviously learned from their older mistakes with the Carnival, and they've sorted all of that out for this car. For example, there's no 11-seater variant. Nobody bought that 11-seater variant. it was the Limousine variant that sold the most, and that was the most popular. So they've only brought it in a 7-seat Limousine configuration. Because it's an SKD, parts and components can be difficult to manage if there are too many color options. So it's black and it's white. Last time the Carnival, like some 70 or 80% of the sales were only in black. So black is obviously brought in, and then the balance is there as a white to give you an option if you don't like or don't want black. So it's very limited in terms of what you can choose. You can literally just choose one of 2 colors and that's it. The rest of the spec is decided for you. But as a machine, it's very well sorted. They've thought about everything, spec'd it into the car, and then given you no decisions to make except for whether you want black or white. Just flip a coin because both look great. But yeah, overall, I'm very impressed with the Kia Carnival. It just does so many things right. I mean, obviously it's not for the keen driver. You've got plenty of other cars out there if you want to drive and you want to spend time in the driver's seat. But for that back seat, I mean, it's phenomenal. Even if I was one person and I had to drive home from work every day, I'd love to be in that back seat. You know, just put yourself horizontal after a stressful day of work and just relax. Just unwind. Put on a movie, maybe read a book if you like reading in cars. I can't. Or just sleep, you know. Sleep in cars is underrated. Now let's talk prices. The Kia Carnival costs rupees 64 lakhs ex-showroom. That's a fair bit more than the older Carnival. But things are very different today. Things are a lot more expensive than they were in 2020. Plus, this is an SKD, that was a CKD, and this attracts a little more duty. But where does it sit in the Indian market? In terms of the MPV space, the Innova Hycross tops out at rupees 31 lakhs ex-showroom. So this is effectively double the cost of a top-end Hycross. And I've heard a lot of people say that if the Carnival is going to be so expensive, I might as well pay a little more and upgrade to a Velfire. But a Velfire no longer costs a little bit more. Velfire prices start at rupees 1.2 crores ex-showroom. That's double of the Carnival. So this sort of sits in the middle of the Hycross and the Velfire. It sort of owns that MPV space and does a good job of it. Its direct rivals in terms of pricing will only be luxury SUVs, and it beats them all thoroughly in terms of comfort. Where it loses out is on the driving experience. So if you're looking for a luxury car to be chauffeur driven in, there's nothing like the Kia Carnival, at least at this price point.